Today we're going to be looking at 5 of the biggest changes that are coming with the Salesforce 2024 summer release. Well, the first feature that we're going to be looking at is the user access summary. If you're familiar with the permission access summary that was in beta testing a couple of releases ago, or in the previous release, this is basically the same thing. Before, you would go to a permission set and you click on the view summary button, and it shows you the permissions that were in the permission set and what things it was giving a user access to. So now, when you go to a user's record detail and you click on the view summary button, you get a similar page where it shows you the system permissions that the user has access to, the objects that a user has access to, and whether they can, read, create, edit, delete, view all, and modify all on those objects. And then it also gives you a view at the fields that they have access to on those objects as well. So obviously a user can have access to a bunch of different objects, and then those objects have a ton of fields on them. So what you would do is you search for the specific object that you're looking for in this search box, and then you can see, opportunity, days open, opportunities, day opportunity was closed, fields like that, and it shows you if they have read access to it or edit access to that field. So like in this case, this day's open field, they would only have read access to it. And it also shows you the custom permissions and whether they're a part of various public groups and queues as well. I think this is a great place for admins to use to try to figure out why certain users aren't able to access something. If they're trying to troubleshoot why a user can't edit a specific record, or why a user can't see specific records, this would be a great area for them to look at first, to be able to see what a user has access to, and they can try to solve those issues starting from here. Now the next update, the next feature that we're going to be looking at is going to be something that I think is pretty cool, which is the Automation Center, or the Automation app. And this is just basically Salesforce has taken flow from setup. Originally, to look at flows, we would go to setup and we would type in flow in the search bar, and then that will take us to all the flows that we've been working on. Now what they've done is they've taken this and they've thrown it into an app that you can access from anywhere, as long as you have access to the app launcher. So here they've given you a list view. You recently modified flows, and also flows that have ran into errors. And they've also given you this component over here that will take you to the Trailhead flow community to ask any questions that you need to ask. And you can also use this button to create new flows as well. And if you click on this flow tab, it will give you a bigger list view that shows you, some of the list views that you probably created for your flows, whether it is recently modified, all flows, or all flows, modified by me or created by me. And I think this is a pretty cool, new visualization or new center to access all of the automation that's going on in your org. And now one thing about this is it doesn't bring over your workflow and process builder, because that's most likely because those features are being sunsetted by Salesforce. So there's no reason to pull them onto this page when we should all be migrating those processes over to Flow. Now, the next feature that we're going to be looking at, which I think is going to make a lot of admins' lives easier, is going to be adding custom fields to the dynamic record pages. Originally, when you had to add a new field to a dynamic record page, you would have to go through the motions of creating the field. And then after creating the field, you would open up the record page by clicking Lightning Record Pages. on that object, and then you would go and individually drag it onto the dynamic form. But now they've made a way that is similar to the same way you would add a field to a page layout, where they have this step in creating the field add to dynamic form enabled record pages, where it pulls in all the record pages that are using dynamic forms, and then it gives you the option to add that field to those pages. And then you would click next, and then you also still have the option to add fields to page layouts as well. So I won't put those on the page layout, but then I'll go ahead and hit save there. And then when we go to the dynamic page, we will see that the new date field that I just created has been added to the dynamic form layout. There at the bottom of the first section of the dynamic forms page is the new field that we just created. Now, another new feature or some couple of updates that is coming to Lightning App Builder and Dynamic Forms is Dynamic Forms, they now have the option to add blank spaces into the fields. This is something that page layouts had, but Dynamic Forms didn't have. So if you're using Dynamic Forms, if you wanted to format the pages a certain way, you kind of weren't able to throw in the spaces that you would normally have on page layouts. Now with this, admins have the ability to construct their page layouts, construct their record pages to be more user friendly. Another thing is the tabs feature. You can now go into individual tabs, and you have the ability to set a component visibility for those specific tabs. Before, you only had the ability to set visibility for the entire tabs component. So if we had entered a criteria to hide this entire tabs component, it would hide all three. But now if we just want to click on the news tab and then set the component visibility to if account currency equals euros, then show that tab. We now have the option to hide those tabs pertaining to what information is on a specific record. Also, rich text fields, the rich text component got a little bit of an update. Now when you're typing text into this component, you have the ability now to choose some of these new formattings that they have available, so that if it's depending on how you're trying to format this specific section, it comes with some presets already. So stuff like new heading, heading 1, heading 2, so on and so forth. Now, the last thing we're going to be looking at is field tracking history, or field history tracking. Previously, you would go to the object that you want to track the fields on to see which fields are being tracked currently, and the amount of fields that or amount of spaces that can be, or the amount of fields that can be added to have their history be tracked on for that specific object. But Salesforce has taken this and thrown it all into one component in setup. And to access this, you just need to type in field history tracking, and you'll get this selection, and it'll bring you to this window. And so you can easily search up a specific object, and then when you click view, it brings up this window on the right side that shows you the fields that you're tracking, and also gives you the ability to select more fields to be tracked. And then if we click that button, it gives you a rundown of all the objects that have field tracking enabled on them, and the fields that are being tracked on them as well. I think this is a really cool really cool center to just address the field tracking for all of your objects in your org. It makes it easier to see what objects you're using field history tracking on, and enable that feature for more fields on that object as well. Thank you very much.